I'm joined today by the lovely Janys Scott QC. So welcome, Janys. Lovely to see you.
Well, nice to see you. It's a long time since I've been described as lovely, but that's very nice of you.
Oh. And we're so pleased that you've agreed to take this quiz. I'm really looking forward to your answers.
Right, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll just get started. So our first question for you, Janys, is if you weren't a lawyer, what would you be?
It is. I really wanted to be a social worker. I really, really did want to be a social worker. I had it all planned. I was going to go to Lancaster University. I was going to study sociology and I was going to be a social worker. And my mum didn't approve and she ganged up with my headmistress against me. And blow me, they sent me off to see somebody in Cambridge with a view to studying history. And the person I went to see was a lady called Christine Hallett, who afterwards became a professor and the vice chancellor of Stirling University in social work. Anyway, she became a social worker and I became a lawyer. Sorry.
So how was that introduced to you then? What made you go down that path?
Well, I'd chatted with various lawyers when at school. Actually, I'd had a terrible experience when at school with law. They sent a load of us down to the local county court to see how the law really worked.
Yeah.
And so we all went in there and we heard a really interesting morning's case about a car accident. It was great, really, really, really interesting. I really was very caught up with it. The only problem was when we all came out, we all piled into the lift, all 24 of us. We went down to we thought we went down to the ground floor and we couldn't get out of the lift. And we looked round and it said 12 people only and there were 24 of us in it. And we sunk 2 inches below ground level with 24 of us in the lift. So that was my first encounter with the law. But no, aside from that, the bug bit me. It became something that I decided I wanted to do. And I ended up changing in my degree from having done 2 years history to doing a year of law. And once the bug had bit me for law, I just couldn't get out of it, never looked back.
Really? And where did you start your practice then, Janys? What is your kind of background to your practice in the law?
Well, I started my legal work at the age of 20 in Oxford. I just got married the previous week. Being Mrs. Scott was great because it sounded older than I really was. But I was an article clerk on Oxford High Street. Well, in fact, just behind Oxford High Street to start with. I worked there. After the end of my articles, I actually went off to the Middle East for 18 months and spent some time in Iraq. Came back, worked again in Oxford as a solicitor. And then my husband got a job in Scotland. So I came with him to Scotland, kicking and screaming because I had to requalify. And then went there to the bar.
So did you go directly to the bar once you arrived in Scotland? You started? No.
No, I had to requalify, which was interesting with 2.5 children. Qualified as a Scottish solicitor, and I did work as a solicitor, first of all for a firm in Edinburgh, and then I worked as an in-house lawyer for the British Agencies for Adoption and Fostering. So I did some of my social work there, and then I moved from that job to law. I just couldn't stay out of practice. I mean, I loved the policy job and the training job for 3 years, but I'm a practitioner.
Okay. And then when was your calling to the bar? How did that come about?
Oh, well, it was actually somebody called Peter Gillam who became Sheriff Gillam. And when I was thinking I'd like to get back into practice, I was standing with him and Jim Cameron I can remember it now, on the steps of Drumshoe Gardens, the old law society. And I said, Peter, I think I'd like to get back into practice. Will you give me a job? And he said, nah, Janys, go to the bar. Perhaps I will.
Okay.
Went off to see the clerk of faculty. It was then Paul Cullen, who was so nice. He was utterly delightful and really, really kind. And I decided that it's something I could do and would quite like to do. It's been great. All of the fun, none of the administration.
Oh, fantastic. So that was your lead into the bar from there, and you've not looked back since?
I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah. All right. Oh, well, thank you for that background to Janys Scott QC, as we know you now. And any regrets of not going down the social work route now? I suppose you've got aspects of that in your job, don't you? So
yes, and I think the law is a broader profession, and I really hate to say this. My mum was right again.
Oh dear. All right, we'll move on to question 2, which is, did you have a nickname at school? And if so, what was it and why were you given it?
I cannot remember having a nickname at school. I really can't. If I'd had one, it would have been one of two things. It might have been SWAT. I didn't think of myself as a SWAT, but anyway, it might have been SWAT. And the other one would have been Watcher playing lacrosse, because I played in defence. And, you know, in hockey, if you can't hit the ball, you hit the player. In lacrosse, if you can't hit the player, you hit the ball. I was lethal.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Okay, question 3. What was your first job?
My first job was in a shop selling gifts. I wanted to go on a school cruise, and it cost a lot of money in those days, and I had to save up for it. So I thought, I'll get a Saturday job and I'll save up so I can go on the school cruise. So it was in this gift shop. They were very nice there. They were lovely. I remember it, but I couldn't quite understand what I got wrong when I was trying to sell stimulated leather goods.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Did you manage to sell any?
Yeah, it was fine. I had a Saturday job for ages, and it was good fun.
So where was that, Janys? Where were you living at that point?
In Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire. Okay. And did you get on your school cruise?
I did. It was wonderful. We went to the Caribbean, a month in the Caribbean. Can you imagine that? All on a converted troop ship. They packed all these sixth formers on a converted troop ship and took us off to the Caribbean.
I thought when you said a cruise, I thought you were meaning down some sort of river in Britain, but no, they actually took you to the Caribbean.
Caribbean, yes.
Wow. No wonder you got yourself a job for that. Fantastic. All right. Question 4, Janys, is what do you recall of your first court appearance?
Well, I represented somebody who was accused of careless driving in Oxford Magistrates Court. And I was so naive. I had no idea what a forlorn hope this case was. And I gave it my all. You know how the first case, you really do bash for it. And we lost it. I mean, he was convicted. And I had a friend who was prosecuting it on behalf of the Thames Valley Police, as it was there. And I remember him turning to me as I went out of court. And he said, "Nice try."
Oh. Well, that's good that you had plenty of confidence, though, and keen to get in there.
Cheek.
Cheek.
Probably courts ever since.
All right. Question 5. Your most, or who is or was your most inspiring colleague?
Now I have to be careful here, because this is not so much a colleague. It would be presumptuous of me to call Brenda Hale, Baroness Hale of Richmond, a colleague, but she is such an inspiration. And what's an inspiration about her is that she has a fabulous intellect, but she doesn't abandon her humanity. And let me tell you a story, because this really epitomizes Baroness Hale for me. Went to the Supreme Court to argue a case for somebody who was looking for personal independence payment. And there was an issue about the points that he could accumulate for this personal independence payment. He had mental health difficulties, and it was a question of whether he needed social support. And he was really too unwell to come with us to the Supreme Court. And so when I stood up to address the court, I explained that he wasn't able to be present because of his mental health difficulties. And Baroness Hale stopped me and she said, "Is he watching on live stream?" And I said, "Yes, he will be watching on live stream." And she said, "Let's just pause to acknowledge his presence." Pure but waved to him. It was just the humanity of acknowledging this was a real person, even though he wasn't present there in the courtroom, and that she knew this was a case about him and it was important.
Oh, yeah, important things that we so often forget about or overlook. So yeah. Oh,
I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Question number 6, Janys. How do you define success?
Well, the practice of law is a risky business. Things happen that you don't expect. Things go astray. Matters get all over the place. And so in that context, my definition of success is no disasters today. We got away with it again.
Oh dear, I know it's an awful way to live, isn't it?
Yeah, it reminds me actually. I heard a presentation from the lady who's just been inducted as the Supreme Court judge. This is Vivian, remember her name now, Rose, that's right. And she said that she was sitting there as a junior barrister and she realised that she just couldn't cope with all this midnight working and not knowing where you were the next day and dashing off and so on. So she went into the government legal service. I thought, government legal service, but I love the not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow and doing the midnight work and dashing off and so on. So here I am, I'm a practitioner, there she is, she's in the Supreme Court.
Oh dear. Oh, all right. Question number 7 is your favourite holiday destination?
Difficult to choose. It's got to be somewhere hot. It's got to be somewhere interesting, and there has to be delicious food. That is my ideal. And there has to be things to look for. There has to be something to search for. My kids tease me terribly because I took them on holiday to the south of France, to the Tarn-et-Garonne. And reading the guidebook, as you do, I discovered in the village that we were in, there was a door knocker at Horseman Height. So it was up, so it was reachable from your horse. And I was determined I was going to find this door knocker at Horseman Height. And I marched my kids all the way around this village. And they would go, oh, mum, oh, mum, oh, mum, no. And eventually I found
it. And did you reach it?
It was a Horseman Height, how could I?
I wonder if someone maybe give you a punty up or something. No.
Just to see it, we found it.
Oh.
That's the sort of holiday I like.
Okay. And do you take time to rest as well, rather than kind of searching about or doing the touristy things? How do you relax, Janys?
I relax in my garden at home. I've got a fabulous vegetable garden. I'm not great with flowers. I'm getting better with flowers, but I love digging.
Really? So still active rest?
Yeah, I'm not a very restful person. I think I'm a bit restless to be around, frankly. Sorry.
Okay. Question number 8 is your most memorable case.
My most memorable case? Oh, Edith. My most memorable case has to be representing you, doesn't it? 2 months ago, as one of the brave 27 church leaders challenging the Scottish government's regulations that said that churches were bound to close. There could be no assembly, there could be no communion, there could be no ministry between one another. And the thought that you and 26 others were prepared to stand up and be counted and say, this is not Christianity as we know it. Our faith is about more than this. So please let us back into our churches to worship together. That was such a privilege. So thank you, Edith.
Oh, well, thank you. And you are memorable to us because you did such an amazing job. And the hearing itself was memorable. I'm sure for you, Janys, but for me watching and for all of us watching, perhaps me most, because I was the only, as far as I know, well, maybe not the only lawyer, but the only advocate, if that makes a difference. But just hearing your submissions, which were of the type I've never heard, and maybe we will hear more in the future, we don't know, but certainly submissions that I'd never heard the likes of. So it was incredible to watch and be a part of, and a real privilege for me. So we're very much indebted to you for your incredible advocacy, both in written form and orally. But it was really interesting to be part of, and very privileged, and a real moment for us to, for that to be a decision on that to have been made. And Lord Braid as well, very brave in making that. So incredible all round.
It was great to be part of, so thank you so much.
Fantastic. Question 9, Janys, is who has had the biggest influence on your career in the law?
Oh, there's only one person, that's my husband, Kevin. I mean, what's it like to be married to a hyperactive lawyer? I'm all over the place. And I come home and I'm full of it. and sit down and say, do you know what happened today? And it's all the kind of emotional and personal support and all the practical support. And in the midst of this, of course, we had 3 children who also put up with me. So it was that kind of support and family life that Kevin and I had together. And so he really has been the biggest influence on my life in the law. Not a lawyer, of course, he's a clergyman, or was a clergyman. But yes, could never have done it without Kevin.
I've met Kevin. I do remember meeting him a number of years ago, and he seems quite a calm figure. That's why I remember? Maybe it was just the particular day I met him. But are you very different? Is that why it works so well?
We are very different. We come from different backgrounds, different perspectives. We have different political views. Yes, we are different, but it kind of works, and it's worked for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. But so despite all these differences, you're able to debate, discuss, and at the end of the day, respect each other's views and are clearly happily married.
Absolutely. But I think, of course, we're held together by both being Christians. We both have a common Christian faith. And that means that the differences are more stimulating than divisive.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Oh, that's lovely. Question 10, your funniest or most memorable court moment?
Well, I didn't realise that actually you could have humour in court. And I didn't realise it until Michael Bruce, Lord Marnock, taught me this one. Mm-hmm. And I can still remember the moment. It was the last day of term and I had an appeal. And to understand what was going on, you have to know about a former member of faculty, now deceased, called Rosie Morrison. Dear Rosie was an eccentric, and she got more and more eccentric as she grew older. And in the midst of her eccentricities, she was appointed a temporary sheriff. And she reached a decision in a financial provision in divorce, which we were appealing. And we all knew Rosie was eccentric. We all knew she was actually nutty. She was very eccentric. Anyway, so I stood up in front of a bench of 3, Lord Cullen in the chair, Lord Marnock and somebody else on the other side. And I said, my lords, this is an appeal from temporary sheriff Rosaline Morrison sitting in Ayr. And Lord Marnock said, where did you say she was sitting, Mrs. Scott?
Oh dear. Oh.
Lord Cullen, absolutely. I mean, he wasn't a very funny man, but I mean, the bench just collapsed.
Yeah. Oh my. Goodness me.
Yeah, you can smile in court.
Yeah, and sometimes, yeah, and even dealing with horrendous, harrowing evidence, sometimes that's the best way to deal with it, isn't it? Because if you don't, you could go the opposite way, and if you don't laugh, you cry. So, yeah, I think there is humour to be found in the courtroom, and it's healthy to do that appropriately, of course. All right. Question number 11, Janys, is we all make mistakes. What have you learned from a professional error?
Watch who you sue. No, seriously. When I was a solicitor in Oxford, I acted for somebody called Mr. Bunyan and a bunch of nuns in an action against 2 people who shoved 2 concrete bollards into a road to stop people driving through. Fine. And we went all the way to Chancery to get these concrete bollards removed. And just about on the last day, I discovered who these 2 gentlemen were. They were the 2 top obstetricians from the local maternity hospital. Now, just imagine having a baby and thinking, I've just succeeded in a case against them. I've cost them an awful lot of money and they've got to take their favourite bollards out of the road. Do I really want to be looking into their face when delivering a baby? I had to scramble to get into the GP unit. You need to be young enough.
Oh my goodness. And what was the purpose of the bollards? Why did they place them there?
It was to stop people doing a rat run through a private road. So
right.
people were going through one part of Oxford to another, and this was quite a handy little road to go through. And they were getting fed up with people whizzing past their front drives on this rat run. The only problem was that for poor old Mr. Bunyan, it was quite a windy road, and he either had to back all the way into his drive or all the way out. And as far as the nuns were concerned, it was a 5-mile drive to church because of the bollards.
Oh my goodness. And did you encounter these obstetricians after that?
I managed the GP unit just.
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Okay. So you went to the GP. I see. Oh, dear. All right. Question number 12 is, what do you do to stay well?
Well, there's only one person in the whole of human history who, when you touch them, you catch health. Now, this is important in a pandemic, okay? In a pandemic, we're desperate about touching people and catching COVID, aren't we?
Yeah, well, some are, yeah.
just think about the New Testament. Jesus touched lepers. He didn't get leprosy. They became well.
Mm-hmm.
People who touched Jesus caught health. So for me, the important thing about staying well is to stay in touch with Jesus as a Christian. That's what I do. So I get up in the morning, I read my Bible, I say my prayers, I try and stay in touch during the day, and that is my recipe for keeping healthy.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, yeah, and that spiritual health is well, for a Christian, the most important thing. Although we are told to look after our bodies as well. Do you do anything of that sort, or you're always very slim? Do you watch what you eat and things like that?
Oh, I love my garden. I do quite a lot of gardening. So yes, gardening helps. And of course I grow food, so I do eat healthy food.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. And that is your answer of your spiritual health. That's how to stay healthiest of all, isn't it? And focus on that primarily. Yeah. Lovely. All right. Question 13 is, what advice would you give on dealing with challenging clients, Janys?
Well, I have a lot of them because I work in family law, and people come to court or come to lawyers upset, distressed, fed up. And so most people who are in family cases are challenging. So what I'd say to people is try and stand in your client's shoes, try and understand where they're coming from, why it is that they're in this particular state. And then you can start to help them see their way out of it. And the other trick I have is to try and get the people I'm representing to see what the other side is thinking. And then they can perhaps see their way through to a resolution in a family circumstance. So it's about standing in people's shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think people maybe think challenging clients, the most likely place you'll find them is where I practice, predominantly in the criminal courts. But I can see that, family law, emotions must be running extremely high, perhaps even more so, because this is dealing with families and something very personal to them and something that they ultimately have an absolute right, or they think they do in their minds. So I can imagine that, yeah, you must experience a lot of trying and testing people for very often for good reason. And I imagine then that's a big burden for you to take on as well, because you will appreciate just how important it is in these people's lives.
Yes, yes, it is important, but it's not ultimately my burden. I think one of the things that is difficult for a younger lawyer, and I say this with respect, is to distance themselves. You're no good if you don't retain your objectivity and you lose your capacity to analyse as a lawyer. You have to be able to stand back and apply analysis to the situation. So where you try and stand in your client's shoes, it's to understand it. It's not to take on board within yourself their problems. Otherwise, you'd never last. You never last the course.
That would overwhelm you, wouldn't it, if you allowed emotions to dictate how you were behaving? And yeah, I suppose that's why we're not allowed to appear on behalf of friends, family, and the like, because the emotional side of things could completely overwhelm you, and as you say, potentially distort your ability to practice as a impartial or clear-headed lawyer. So yeah, I get that, absolutely. All right. Question 14, would you recommend law as a career?
Well, I tried to my 3 children. They looked at me and said, Mum, looks like hard work. Don't think we'll do that. Now, having said that, my daughter is an architect. So building law's her, right? My middle child, my son, is working for university in administration, and he looks after overseas students. So he does immigration law. There you go. And my baby is now a patent agent.
Oh, well.
So none of them wanted to do law, you understand.
Yeah, you've managed to influence them at least in some way. Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's a difficult career, I think, for people coming into now, certainly young folk or anyone that's come out of university with a degree, given the lack of traineeships and things like that. It's very difficult, but, and Hey Legal, we're trying to assist in traineeships, and then we've got a scheme which is up and running or is about to be. So, but it's very sad for very keen, talented young, and well, I'm saying young, but some people go back to do a law degree later in life. But these talented people that are coming out with great qualifications and a lot to offer, but just not the opportunities. But I mean, I suppose like me, you wouldn't put anyone off, but it's a reality.
No. And what I've often done is I've taken people under my wing for some shadowing and said, come and see a case, come and work with me. And I'm still friends with a lot of the people who came and shadowed.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's just trying to help people as best you can. But very, very difficult. But you've clearly enjoyed your career as a lawyer, Janys.
Absolutely, revelled in it.
Yeah, that's very apparent talking to you. It's great. You're a great advert for it yourself. Yeah. Question 15. What aspects of your job bring you the most satisfaction?
Communication. Understanding where somebody's from, working out what the law has to say about it, and explaining it to a court. To me, it's all a job about communication, and that's the real skill that one needs as a court lawyer. So that's, if I feel that I have understood and I have explained, and that the client feels that I have explained it. I'm a skilled talker. If I can talk for them and put it into words for them, that would give me satisfaction.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you have very many satisfied clients. I'm one of them. So yes, I can vouch for that. Question 16. What skill should every lawyer have or learn?
I'm going to give my age away. There's a radio program called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was written by Douglas Adams. And one of the great phrases in that, and you can have it printed on your towel if you knew where your towel was don't panic. So the skill that every lawyer should have in this difficult, uncertain, risky profession is don't panic. Just don't panic. Don't get a rush of blood to the head when things go wrong, because they will go wrong. Just have the capacity to look calmly at it, analyse it, work out what to do and get on with it.
Yeah,
don't panic.
Well, that's great advice. Absolutely. And the easiest thing to do is to panic, isn't it? That's the first reaction. But yeah, things go wrong a lot in the law. And, whilst they come as a shock, you're right. You need to step back. And it's probably in that stepping back and taking time to look at it and see what's actually happening or how it can be fixed, or the fact that it isn't the end of the world that is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Don't panic.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I like that. Question 17. Favourite chocolate bar?
Oh, green and black's 85% every time.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. It's that sort of bittersweet taste. And then as you crunch on it, it becomes kind of creamy in the mouth. Oh, yeah. 85%.
And do you restrict yourself in that, Janys? Do you allow yourself that?
Well, what I do is I keep a bar in the fridge,
right?
Okay, in the bread compartment, and after lunch I just break off a couple of squares, have it with my coffee.
Oh, very nice.
I try and ration it.
Mm-hmm. Although I think, sorry, on you go.
I'm not a guzzler of the whole bar, just a couple of squares with my coffee. Oh, yum.
I think it's quite good for you as well, though. So they say, whoever they are. So you're being quite virtuous having the dark chocolate and all the antioxidants that come with it, evidently.
No virtue, just love it.
Oh, that's good. Okay, question 18 is, what job would you be terrible at?
Oh, I'd be terrible as a musician.
Really?
I'm absolutely tone deaf. For some reason, my parents, I still don't know why they did it, started me playing the guitar, playing the violin at the age of 8, and it was a disaster. And I played the violin all the way through my school days. I played in some community band thing when I was in Oxford, and I'm absolutely terrible. I'm lousy. During this pandemic, I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll get my violin out and I'll play it. Seemed like a good idea, didn't it? So I got my violin out and started, and dear Kevin, oh bless him, he got me this little device that could tell me if I was playing out of tune. I put the violin away again, haven't touched it since.
Was the device going into overdrive?
Didn't even dare try.
And that's quite an unusual thing for your parents to do, to encourage that if you weren't particularly good at it. But, well, good on them.
Well, no, I think I regret to say it was because the lessons were free when I was 8.
All right.
They did actually send me in the garage to play, and they blamed me for driving the rabbit round the bend.
Well, they must have wanted you to at least have a chance to try it. But that's funny. Oh, sorry. Well, maybe get you back, Janys, with your violin at a future day, and you can give us a rendition.
No demo.
Oh dear. All right, question 19. What is your favourite animal? And if you have a pet, you have to show it on screen.
I don't currently have a pet. And the rabbits was not a great success, but what I have to show you is this.
Oh.
Isn't that sweet? Now, the reason that I am holding a guinea pig, even if it's only a little pottery guinea pig, is this. When the children were little, they had pets. We had various rabbits and hamsters and whatnot. And some of their friends had this pair of guinea pigs. They got them from the pet shop, and back they came. And lo, within about 2 weeks, there was another little guinea pig. It was about 2 inches long, and it was white, and it had a black nose and a black bottom. And I absolutely fell for it. Now, they had to borrow our travelling hutch because it was a male, and the 2 they got were females, and obviously the one had been impregnated before they bought them. But there was this little pig in my travelling hutch, and I said, I think I'd like to keep it. And the kids went, Mum, if you keep this guinea pig, you're going to have to feed it, you're going to have to clean it out, you're going to have to look after it, Mum. I said, but I will, I really love it, I really want this guinea pig. So this was a guinea pig, my guinea pig. It had a fancy name, but it was never called a fancy name. It was always Mum's pig.
Oh.
And when I got home from work, I opened the front door, looked down the front hall, the school bags and the blazers and all the rest of it, and I'd shout, hello! And the first thing I'd hear was this cacophony of and the guinea pig greeting me as I got home. He was lovely. He was such a sweet.
So was he a kind of, in the way you get house rabbits now, was he a house guinea pig? Was he just running about free?
No, he had a hutch. He couldn't be in the garden because we lived in North Edinburgh and there were foxes in the garden. Right. But he kind of lived in the back, in the utility room area. But he could hear my voice at the front door.
Oh, and what was his name? What was the name he?
I can't remember now. Mum's pig.
All right. Oh, that's very sweet. No thoughts to get another one, Janys?
Well, I don't have kids anymore. Not so the kids just sort of nag me into cleaning him out and all the rest of it. No.
Oh, really? So they did take charge?
No.
I mean in role reversal. Yeah, they were the one reminding you that you had to look after it properly.
Quite so, yeah. I mean, these kids have to take responsibilities for their own mother.
That's brilliant. I love that. Oh, well, we've come to the last question, which is, what questions should we have included in the quiz?
Well, it's a pandemic and people are scared. People are scared all over the place. And it's really sad to see people so scared. So I thought you ought to ask me, why aren't we scared? In a society that's paralysed by fear. I do understand why people are afraid, but I want to take a leaf from St. Paul's book. I heard a lovely thing about St. Paul the other day. Apparently, there's a contemporaneous record that says he was short, bald, bandy-legged, had a hook nose, and sometimes he had the face of an angel.
Oh.
That's right. So anyway, he was writing to his friends at Philippi, and he said an astounding thing. He said, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. So I would like to be able to adopt that and say there's fruitful work to be done. There's no need to be afraid. And that for me as a Christian, it's trust in Jesus and get on with the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. And it's very sad to see so many people so frightened, in fact, so scared of dying that they've stopped living, really. Yeah, I'm not afraid at all, and I'm not saying that flippantly. Obviously there are concerns and you do worry, or I did at the start, but yeah, life has changed so much that we've got to, well, certainly if you have a faith like we do, you have hope, but for so many it's very, very sad. And I think even seeing people in the street, and if they're jumping away from you, or you can start to get a wee bit upset or angry, thinking, well, what do you think you're doing? But you then remember that people are just terrified, and it's really sad. It is.
I think that society needs to recover the message of hope in Jesus.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I know many would not agree with this, but I would agree, and I think that's where really, we can. I think we would both say that's where much has gone wrong, not only in our country but the world, where that's been lost, and that's what needs to come back. So who knows? Maybe this will make people think, Janys.
Maybe it will.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You've been a really interesting guest and brought a lot of insight into your life. Janys Scott, the QC, and Janys Scott, the lovely lady that you are. So thank you so much for your time and for all that you've given to us today, Janys.
It's a pleasure.
And I hope to see you soon.
Indeed.
All right. Well, you take care and thank you again. Bye for now.